Hello everyone, I'm Jaha Zainabu and welcome to Storytime with Jaha Zainabu 16/365. Thank you for being here. I hope that you're well today. Let's see, today, so in many of the other videos I began with some random story. And then the last couple of days, I kind of fell off of that. So we're going to start that back. Today's random story is about a time when, so this is before, maybe either just before my son entered kindergarten or while he was in kindergarten, somewhere around that time. So we're talking 2000, somewhere between 2001 and 2002. And I was living in Los Angeles. We were living in Los Angeles. We were living in an area called, commonly known as the Jungle, in LA. And Urias was with me, and we were in at the DMV. And not the DMV. Department of Water and Power. So we're in line at Department of Water and Power, and Urias is getting a bit restless, and he, was like, "Why do we have to be here this long? Why are we standing in this long line?" And so I said, "Urias, we have to be here this long and stand in this line because I have to give them money, and the money that when I give them the money, they're going to keep, that money is going to keep our power on, our lights on." So he is okay. And we get to the front, we get to the person, and I give her the money. We go home, everything's fine. Urias is in his room and he's playing whatever he's playing in his room. I'm in the living room and I'm doing whatever I'm doing. Then there was some kind of shortage in his room with the power in his room. And he came out, he came out of the room and he came up to me and he was like, "Mom, did you pay my half?" Like, wait a minute. I thought we took care of this in line. You gave them the money and the power in my room is off, but in here it's cracking. Like, did you pay my half? Which I thought that was some kind of dope little, analyzing for a little kid. So that's that story. And I tell the random stories because when sometimes that's what your writing sessions will be. You may not have time for an hour session. You might have time for 17 sentences, 16 sentences, a quick little quip, but get something out. So if all I had time today to do was tell you the story about Urias and did you pay my half, it starts somewhere. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about, we're always talking about writing. And I'm going to talk about things you can do, as usual, things you can do when you get stuck, when you get stopped. When you get stuck or stopped, always create some kind or have some kind of like story list on deck, maybe in a Word file or something like that. Write a list. We talked about this in one of the earlier story times. Write a list of 20, 30, 50 random stories in your life. Random stories, however they pop up, in no particular importance. However the stories pop up, how you felt when your kindergarten teacher didn't call on you, the time you called into work and you really weren't sick, but you went to the mall and whatever you did. Just create a list and keep it. Create this list and like, keep a list of just random stories. And these are stories that you might not be able to talk forever about, like I said. Just stories that you start somewhere with. So, so we're talking about, so that's one thing that you can do when you are stuck. Just pull from that list. Another thing is, I wrote down a list and that wasn't even on the list. So I'm kind of like freestyling right now, and then I'll go to the list as I get stuck. But another thing you can do if you are a journaler, go to your journals and pick a day, read it, expand it, add color to it, make it make believe, or add an entry to the journal. What happened today? Yeah, what happened today? So I'm gonna go to the list. Okay. Number one I wrote was writing through a bad day. I think that sometimes we have it that today was a bad day, so it means it's an off day for creating. It doesn't mean that, my dear. It does not. It could. Okay, there are no rules, but it does not have to mean that because you had a bad day, then you don't have anything to add to your creativity. All of your experiences, all of your moods, all of your feelings deserve a voice and a place in your story. It just adds texture to your story. Unless you are writing a book of spiritual motivations, you're going to have it, it's gonna flow. It's gonna flow. It's gonna be up. It's gonna be down. It's going to do that. And really, even if you are writing a book of motivation, it could do that as well. The example that I'll use here is Iyanla Vanzant's Acts of Faith. If you remember that book, the little purple book. So she began the book. If you aren't familiar with Iyanla Vanzant's Acts of Faith, it's a collection of kind of, I want to say motivational, but I feel like it was bigger than that, or is bigger than that. But there were these on one, it would be the date, and I think it was a year-long booklet. But there would be the date, and then I actually have the book. I could pull it out. But there would be the date, and then under the date, it might say something like, I'm making stuff up. This is not a quote from Miss Iyanla. You can do it even if it seems like you can't. I don't know. Again, no, that's not a quote, but it say something like that. And then there would be a few paragraphs or page or in some example of how you can do it, even when it seems like you can't, So, there would be some example, I think maybe from her life or wherever. So all of that, your book is going to be layered. Your story is going to be layered. Your story is not going to be one note. Your story is your interesting story is not going to be just you writing on and about all of the days you felt great. Yeah, all of your feelings deserve to be written about, to be expressed. So sometimes writing through your bad day could be as simple as, and when I say simple, I use that very loosely because I get that it might not be simple. Could be something like you writing about what happened at work, what happened at school, what happened in therapy or in traffic, or whatever happened and wherever it happened that your day became what you call bad. What was that conversation with your boss, your teacher, your student? What was, what happened? What happened? And just go from there. And just leave all of what happened on the page. You don't have to work it out. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to make your life look good. You don't have to be the hero. And it might be better that you're not. Just, you don't have to look good all the time. Number 2, I wrote, write from, just in your session, write from a space that is not your dominant personality. So you sit down to write, and if you would consider yourself a pretty serious person, but there, no human being is any one thing. We know that. So if you are usually a very serious person, there are moments when you're silly. Allow yourself in this session to be silly. Whatever silly looks like to you. Be embarrassingly silly. How it doesn't, remember, none of this has, nothing in your writing has to be true. There will not be writing ghosts that jump out of your computer screen, your notebook, that say, "Nuh-uh, that didn't happen. It didn't go down like that. It's not going to happen." It's your story. It's your poem. It's your movie. It's your whatever you're writing. It's yours. So again, write from a space that is not your dominant personality. So if you are serious, write from a space where where you get silly. If you have to create in your story that you are drunk, and that gives you more freedom and permission to write things that, write yourself in situations and in conversations and inside of behaviors that you would normally actually do. Do it. Just be different. Be loose and wild. All of these are just suggestions. All of these are just things that you can do when you get stuck. And we will get stuck. It happens. If you are usually a funny person, a funny poet, a funny storyteller, if you're usually kind of silly, be serious for a moment and see what that looks like. And it might look like a completely different person. And that's always interesting. I look at Don Cheadle, from the actor, from when he was in Devil in a Blue Dress, playing opposite Denzel. I'm not going to go through all of these. Google and Netflix and watch the movie, or not. But I'm assuming that you watched the movie or that you have some kind of reference or frame of reference for these characters. So his character Mouse in Devil in a Blue Dress, he's this kind of gangster guy, and he will shoot somebody, he'll kill somebody, he's slick talking, he's all the things. And then you take Don Cheadle playing again opposite Denzel in Flight. Now Don Cheadle he was like a lawyer or something, and he represented the airline that Denzel's character flew for. And Denzel was an alcoholic. And Don Cheadle is this suit wearing lawyer, completely opposite from his character Mouse in Devil in a Blue Dress. So your character, your story might not go from that, like, way over there to way over there, but it can. This is not one big book. These are just exercises. These are just you flexing and exercising different muscles. This is just you being serious when you are usually very funny. And we all know the funny poet. We all know the funny characters, and the audience kind of begins to expect the joke, expect the silly, expect the comedy. Throw them for a loop. Give them something serious. Let's see. Okay, number 3, I said use other objects as prompts. For instance, use photos. I do that. I have when I look at old photos of me, I often wonder and sometimes I know what I was thinking. Like why I was a very serious child. Whoa, baby. I don't, are there any, I don't know that there are, if there aren't many pictures of me smiling as a kid. I'm sure I laughed. I remember laughing. But in photos, I was always very serious. I was always like maybe looking down or looking away or something. And so I use those photos sometimes as prompts. And I might write letters to that girl. Yeah. So, they don't have to be obviously photos of you. You can look through a magazine and be inspired by a picture you see. And it could be a painting. What is that? That is a style of writing. Is it called euphrastic poems? Where you look at, I gotta look it up, but where you look at a painting or some art and you write about that. I remember one time there was a bookstore in Inglewood that friends of mine, Food and Socks, used to own. And the bookstore, the poetry house, was called Vibrations. And on Sunday nights, we would do writing prompts. And one of the writing prompts was actually, I remember, her name is Socks. Her name is Melanie. We call her Socks. And Socks showed us a statue of this woman holding like some kind of vessel that perhaps should hold water or whatever it would hold. And the assignment was to write for 20 minutes about that statue, about that woman's day, about her duties, her life, her whatever. And so you could do that. Take anything, take any random and write about that. Um, it doesn't have to be 20 minutes. It could be as long as you decide you will sit there and you will write. But I like to give myself some time, because sometimes when I give myself an out, I'll take it. And so I try not to do that. So if I say, I'm going to write for 20 minutes, then I will try to push it and keep going until 20 minutes. If 20 minutes seems like a long time, don't say 20 minutes. Say 12, say 10, say 7, say 5. Doing it is the point. Not, no one expects these prompts, these writing from the prompts to be super prolific. No one is expecting you to submit it to whatever. Doing it is the point. I was listening to some celebrity, and he was talking about working out. And he had become, like, he had created this new commitment to working out. And he said sometime, and working out at the gym. And he said there were days that he really didn't feel like going to work out. So he would get dressed in his gym wear, drive to the gym, sit in the parking lot. And if he felt like going in, he would go in and check in. And if he felt like going further and like putting his foot on the treadmill, then he would do that. But just driving to the gym could count as showing up. So show up. I don't know what counts as showing up for you. And give yourself the grace you need to give yourself. If sitting at your writing table and staring at your journal or your laptop or your whatever you write, whatever device you use, if that counts for you as showing up, show up. Show up. So for number 4, I said, when you get stuck, describe your setting. I do that. That is how I begin most of my journal entries. Most of my blogs, my blog posts, I begin with the time, where I am, what's going on. It's 3:00 p.m. or whatever time it is. I'm at home in Atlanta. And then go into your mood if you have to. I'm feeling good. I'm not feeling well. I don't feel like writing. I had a bad day. I had a good day, and I'm feeling a bit antsy. I want to get out into the world and live my life. Show up. Show up. Why showing up is important? Showing up is important because it's going to create that consistency. It's going to create it's going to create that activity as being a thing that if you don't do it, it's a big missing. For me, it's a missing if I don't write. It's a thing that, like, I feel like something's off. And now we're on day 16 with the story time. And if I don't sit with this camera in front of me for an hour, I think that it would feel weird. And so I do it. And it helps me. It helps me to grow. It helps me to remind myself why showing up is important. That showing up is important. It helps me to take my own advice and do follow certain prompts when I get stuck in my own creating. mostly these days. I do keep a journal, but not every day. But I do blog almost every day. If I miss a day, then I will post the next morning. But I do blog consistently. Um, my blog post, and if you ever want to check it out, my blog is on Patreon. Um, Patreon.com/Jaha Zainabu. My blogs are only about my life. Is my life that exciting? Not really. Not really. So it's really only about like what I'm doing, what I did that day, a dream I had that night or the night before, uh, goals I may have set for the day or for the next few months or whatever. But I write every day. And so these days, that is the place where I journal. Um, I do tend to get pretty vulnerable in my blogs just because I do. And why not? I am kind of at a place where there isn't much I really hide. So I blog about my life. Um, in my blogs, I tell my story. And people have asked me about that. I don't know why I didn't put that in the list, but people have asked me about that. Like, how do you tell your story without telling somebody else's story? What I do is, especially if they don't want their story told, or you don't know that you have permission to tell their story, I tell my side of the story. Without, I mean, and not like not like an argument or something like that. Like, what's an example? Let's see. And I, oh, oh, I had a friend, and we were pretty close, and we are not friends now. And I talked about that in a blog. I never said anything about the friend. I never mentioned pronouns. I didn't mention a name. I talked about how I felt losing a friend. That was a big part of my life. I talked about that sadness and that loss. So I can tell the story without telling the other person's story. And that's how. Yeah. Number 5. Let's see. I said add mood. Why did I say that? I said add mood because sometimes when we tell a story and we tell it in a kind of this is what so kind of way, and there's nothing wrong with that, but just as exercise and to add texture, to add interest to your story, add mood. You're not a news reporter. You can pick a side. You can have feelings about the outcome. You can feel some type of way, as we say. So add a mood where you feeling funky when Sharon said whoop-de-whoop. What did you say back? Add mood. Add attitude. Describe in great detail her expression and yours and how you felt, and add mood. So when I say that, whatever that means to you, add that. Add funky, add funk, add spice. Okay, number 7. I said add the background. Okay. What I mean by that is, so here's an exercise. Record yourself telling a story and then transcribe everything you hear. So, so include the pauses, include the filler words, the ands, the uhs, the ums, the laughter, the tears, the stutter. Include all of that. If you are recording yourself in a park, include the dog barking. Include everything you hear. Include the guy in the street talking to his friend on the phone. Include the airplane. Include everything you hear. Just this exercise and see where that goes. That's actually pretty dope. Yeah, that's actually pretty dope. So for number 8, I said have fun. Have fun. So writing, the note that I added is writing is work, but you can also create characters and stories you love and look forward to visiting regularly. It's your story. It's something that, like, unless you are, let me think, like a technical writer and your assignment is to write about how this product works. It's yours and you create it. You're gonna have to stick with this or not. The suggestion is that you stick with this. So write something you like. Don't hurt yourself. If you are a beginning writer, even if you're not, if you are a writer who just wants to take on the task of writing something or creating a project that you can stick with, start with something you know well and have some kind of interest in. I remember I was dating this guy who said that, and he loved to cook. And he said, you should, and I'm already turned off because if you know me, you know, I hate people shooting on me. I don't like shooting on people, so I don't like people shooting on me. But he did begin it with what I should do. So he said, you should write a book of poetry that is also a cookbook, which I think is a good idea, but not for me. I don't like to cook. I am not a foodie. I don't have much knowledge or interests in spices or how foods are prepared, or it does not seem like something that is interesting for me to do. Now, I think that if I were in a bookstore, that might be a book that might jump out at me. Like so I think it's a great idea. Like a book of poetry that's also a cookbook. Truthfully, a book of poetry that is also a cookbook might get me interested in cooking. Who knows? Nothing else has. But a book of poetry might. So all that to say, have fun. And let it come from you. Somebody else's interests might not be yours. What somebody else thinks is a good idea might not be a good idea for you. Yeah. So for me, I like to create something that I can stick to that has a time. I don't know why, but for some reason I like my projects to last a year. I don't know why. They can last a day. They can last an hour. I like year projects. So for me, creating a project where I wrote a poem every day was a good idea. And so I did it and I stuck with it. Yeah. Yeah. So do that. I remember a writing project that I created for myself in high school. So in high school, I did not have a boyfriend. And I created this. I didn't create a boyfriend. I wasn't. But I created this writing. I don't know what I would call it, but the project was, I don't even remember what it was called, but the project was I wrote letters to a boyfriend who went to school in another city, state, something, whatever it was. What was his name? Did he have a name? That was so long ago. But I remember it was 11th grade. So I'm in the 11th grade, and I didn't have a boyfriend, and I wanted a boyfriend. I wanted somebody to like me. I wanted somebody to think that I was pretty, or that I was fun, or that I was interesting, or whatever. And so the journal was a collection of letters to my boyfriend that went to school in another state, city, state, whatever. Wherever he was not somewhere where I could see him often or ever or ever. I think that I was inspired by the fact that I wanted a boyfriend and didn't have one. And I was inspired by movies where they, lovers would write to each other. She was at home, he was in the war. I was kind of inspired by that. And all of the letters were, there would be my letter and then his letter. Obviously, I'm making up his side. But, bless my heart, damn. But all of his letters were, about how beautiful I was. And I'm in the 11th grade, so stall me out. So how beautiful I was, how much he couldn't wait to see me again, how, it was awful that he had to move and they had to leave, and he wished he could see me. And my side, my letters were, I never went there. I was never mushy with him because I was serious and I was strong, and I was encouraging him to hold on because it's okay. I mean, I'll be here. I know I'm fly and everybody wants me, but I'm with you, boo. We didn't say boo, but what did we say? I don't know. But I was never I miss you too. I wasn't that. I was, I would talk about my day, and I would mostly I would receive his attention from they were all things that I wished a boy would say to me. So have fun. That was me having fun. And I did actually have fun with him. Which leads me to number 9, which is let your imagination run wild. Again, your stories don't have to be true. Your stories don't have to be true. There is nothing wrong with writing a fictional story. Yeah, something popped in my head just now. So it's what year? Maybe 2012. Yeah, maybe 2012. And I was renting. I'm back in LA. I think I moved back. I was living in McDonough, Georgia for a little while. And then in 2000, probably 2010, maybe late 2009, 2010, I moved back to California, to Los Angeles. And when I first moved back, I was renting a room from my good friend George and his wife, Alicia. So I was renting a room in their house. And you know how it is, or maybe you don't, but when you're renting a room, you still kind of want your space and you still don't want to be in the way. You don't want to take up space. And so I spent a lot of time outside of the house. I didn't want to be cooped up in my room, and I didn't want to take space in the living room so that they could do their family thing when they got home. So I spent a lot of time out. And one of the places that I would go would be the mall. There was a interesting enough food court in the mall, and I'd hang out there. And I noticed that there were regular people who hung out in the food court, and we'd see each other. And they would kind of talk with each other. I wasn't really part of that group and didn't want to be. But one day, one of the gentlemen who kind of hung out in that group approached me, and I was writing. And he said, he was an older man. And he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I see you here, all the time. And what are you doing?" And I said, I come here sometimes because I like to write. I like to get out of the house, and I just want a space where I could write, and I don't mind the noise, so that's why I don't go to a library. I just come here and sit in a food court, and sometimes I get stories, and I just like to write. I don't know why, because nobody asked him, but he said, "I hope you're not writing fiction." Sir, why? And he said with his finger, and you know how I am about people shooting me. Well, you know now about how I am about people shooting me. He said, "If you're writing fiction, then stop. Because if you're not telling the truth, then you're telling a lie." I really let him say what there was for him to say, and then let him leave. I had no desire to say, "Well, I can write what the fuck I want." I had no reason to have a dialogue, nasty or otherwise, with this old guy. But you can write whatever you want to write. The stories do not have to be true. Let your imagination run wild. So for number 10, I said, use the truth and go from there. So my example for that is, you know how in April, poets do what we call 30/30, NaPoWriMo, National Poetry Writing Month. And so the poets write a poem a day for all of the 30 days in April. Well, in November, they have NaNoWriMo, not NaPo, but NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month. And I'm not a novelist, but one November I thought, I want to jump in. I love a good project that lasts a little while. And so I don't remember what the suggested amount of words to write per day is or was. But I didn't care. I just took on writing something that was not a poem, but story-ish every day for all of the days of November. And so what I chose to write about was a story called Dear Mary. And Dear Mary, dear, my grandmother, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering. My grandmother, her first child was named Mary. Mary lived 3 days. There's a story that I have in my ebook called In the Village of My World. And the Village of My World is a collection of fictional stories. And in that collection is a story called Sugar's Baby. That story is about my grandmother and her daughter Mary, who died at 3 days old. And in Dear Mary, every day I wrote, so that part is true. So that I'm writing letters to my Aunt Mary, who died at 3 days old. That part is true. But what I did, so I just wrote letters to her. There aren't a lot of artists in my family. There's me, who is a poet and a visual artist. And then I had an uncle, John, who was also a poet. My mother writes poetry too, but she doesn't call herself a poet or ever chose to pursue that in any great length or deal. So, but there aren't a lot of artists in my family. I have often felt like the odd woman out in my family. Not bad or wrong, just different. There's always one that's a little different. And I felt like that one that was a little different. And in my letters to Mary, I would ask her, I would wonder, I would imagine that she was maybe an artist like me. Or maybe that I was an artist like her. And she was someone who, in the letters, she was someone who I could and did read my stories to, read poems to, someone who was a mentor to me, who was also related to me. I thought, like, I wanted that in real life. And I wanted, in real life, especially early on, I wanted somebody related to me to say, you know what? I think you kind of got something here. You should do this. You should pursue this without without the but kind of just do it on the weekends after you get off work from your real job. Yeah. And I that kind of early support or encouragement would have been a big deal to me. I think that I did have that hey, okay, I think you got something here, after I had done a few things. I had gotten some books published, or been on some big stages, or but and I don't think that the lack of encouragement was out of some spite. I think it was more out of people. I think that people give you what's in their toolbox. And what was in my family's toolbox was they um, finished high school and went to college, and then they got a good job, and they did that good job for 100 years or however long it takes to retire. They did that. I always knew that wasn't going to be my jam. Um, I did. I knew that wasn't going to be my jam. Um, I didn't know what my jam was, but I knew it wasn't that. Um, and I wanted some kind of support for that. I wanted some kind of, well, you know what? Like, let's try this. Let's try this art. You're interested in it? Let's do it. I wasn't allowed to take an art class in high school because I had to take typing for 2 years in a row. Um, and I did become a really great typist. I type very fast for whatever that's worth, but I also live as an artist. Um, so do I have stories about it? Do I have feelings about it still? A little bit. So Mary, dear Mary. So I created Mary as that aunt that was like kind of my champion, kind of like, wait a minute, she is an artist and she, whatever. And so the letters, I set myself up to finish the project successfully because I set myself up to where the story didn't it wasn't a project where the story began and then kind of had a middle and kind of had an ending. It wasn't that kind of story. It was really a collection of 30 different letters. I set myself up so that I would finish it. And I made it as easy as possible and gave myself the space to be as creative as I wanted to be and go as deep as I wanted to in each letter. So there wasn't the pressure. I'm like I said, I'm not a novelist. I think that I've known that for a while. Um, or maybe I am and I don't know it, or maybe I am and I just haven't. I don't know, but that's not what I claim to be. So I created 30 letters and I posted them on my blog. So um so that was my use the truth and go from there. Start with something, and you don't have to, obviously, this is a suggestion. So start with something that's true and then build on that. Go from there. So number 11. Oh, okay. So number 11, I have, so write out a conversation between two people. That I did that in, I did that twice and I loved it. I loved it. So again, I'll repeat that. Write out a conversation between two people. In my blog on Blogspot, I have a conversation. A kind of a series of conversations. I don't remember how many there were, but yeah, some of them exist. Some of the conversations exist. Excuse me, only in my personal files, and some are on the blog. But it's called Angie and Cole, and Angie and Cole, Cole. Angie and Cole were a couple, a black couple, in their early 30s, and the conversations they didn't necessarily they were very fragmented. Like they didn't necessarily blend from one entry to the next necessarily. It was just a writing exercise. So I would kind of start in the middle of a discussion between Angie and Cole. And they would have that conversation, an argument or a date or whatever. And then the next Angie and Cole entry might be something not related. But it was the conversation that counted. The characters remain true to themselves. So, I mean, if Angie was a certain type of character, she stayed that kind of character. You know, she wasn't like, I don't even remember what her profession. This was years. I think this was around 2000. It was a long time ago. But let's say Angie was a painter. I don't remember, but let's say Angie was a painter. So I didn't have. She stayed a painter, and whatever Cole did, he stayed that. It wasn't like in one entry she was a painter and then she was a doctor or a lawyer. She stayed that throughout, so that was consistent. But the story didn't go anywhere. It was just about creating conversation, creating dialogue. It was just me practicing and experimenting and having fun with that. On my Patreon, I created a story called Lamb and Brew. Lamb is Lamb. Lamb was the guy. I like couples. So Lamb was the guy, and Brew, BRU, was his girlfriend. So Lamb and Brew, I did kind of continue, I did stretch myself a bit and continue that story. So if you are on my Patreon or choose to follow me on Patreon, the story is called Lamb and Brew. And it will say Lamb and Brew 1, Lamb and Brew 2, 3, 4, all the way to probably 30 when it finished. And what happened? So if you read it, if you choose, read it as just me having fun with these characters. That story is not going to win an award. It's not. I just wanted to exercise and have fun with it. In the story, Lamb and Brew, there was a murder and Brew had to escape. And somehow, I don't even remember how. I gotta read it again. Somehow she kept in touch with Lamb, or he was trying to get in touch with her, and she is running from the law, and it was just, but they would communicate in these weird ways, and then finally they connect. I don't remember the whole story, but the story is called Lamb and Brew, and it's on my Patreon. It doesn't have a good wrap up or ending, or it was an exercise. And that's the other thing. Do something that you're not good at. How about that? And I never claimed to be an adventure storyteller. But does it mean that I cannot just like stretch myself and play with it? No, it doesn't mean that. I can do it, and I did do it. It's my blog. And I like doing things with some kind of public accountability, some kind of public, like, I showed up. And so every day I showed up. I showed up. Number 12, I wrote, expand on or do the adult version of I Spy with My Little Eye. We used to do that as kids. I spy with my little eye, and then we would describe something. Do that, the adult version of it, and describe in as great a detail as you can what you spy with your adult eye. Let's see, 13. Okay, 13, I said, all of these, by the way, again, to reiterate, are just exercises you can do when you are feeling stuck. I could have listed a million of them. I didn't list a million of them. I'm only here for an hour. Cheer yourself up. Cheer yourself up. How about that? We spend a lot of time, like we know what to say when somebody else is having a day. Say it to you. Let me see. We are at an hour, so I'm going to wrap it up. Let me find something. Oh, I'm going to read this one. So I said number 17, we're going to skip. So number 17, I said, give the shower clap back. I don't know about you, but in the shower, I have the perfect clap back. I'm like, damn it, I should have said, and give it to a character. Or just fuck it, just write it out and have it there. And that's the writing session. See how easy that was? Let me see, I'm gonna, number 19, I said, pick a song. Pick a song that moves you and describe your feelings about that song. So I picked 2 songs. Chris Stapleton's, I grew up on country and western music. I did. R&B for me came later. But I grew up with country and western, and I still love it. I love a good story. I love a story, and there were stories. I love the stories in country and western. So, but Chris Stapleton's Either Way, baby, is like, moves me like, how there, I mean, the words are, something like, the only time we talk is when the monthly bills are due. We pass each other in the hall. We go to work. We go to church. We fake the perfect life. The hook is something like, you can go or you can stay, but I won't love you either way. Like, damn, right? Go to YouTube and Chris Stapleton, Either Way. It's a great song. So I picked that song and like, describe your feelings about, do you know the kind of like, fuck it resolve you have to have, like the, not resolve, but like the, how resigned you have to be to just be like, you know what, go, stay. I won't love you either way. You have to be at to write that. So I wrote that song, and I wrote Anita Baker's Angel. That song always gives me the feels. And these days, anything by Thames. That's my girl. Let's see. I have a lot of okay, I'm going to complete it with this last note. Okay, go from big to little. Okay, and what I mean by that is, so say, and I'm going to include that in another note. Start a blog or some, and people think that you have to have like this big thing you want to talk about when you start a blog. You don't. You can start a blog of talking about whatever you want to talk about. People will read or people won't read. We're not attached. But you can go from, and I said go from big to little. So when I say big to little, I mean topics. Talk about a wide range of things. Talk about flowers one day. Talk about baking bread the next. Talk about rearing children. Talk about being a child. Talk about whatever. You might find, I did find, but you might find that as you go, you will get more and more specific. And And then you might find yourself settling into, I kind of like talking about being in my garden every day. And then maybe that is what your blog becomes. Who knows? Until it becomes the next thing. But just start it. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be this big. This is what I talk about. It doesn't have to be that. It could be whatever fuck you want to talk about. I'm going to wrap up there. I have 9,000 more things on the list though. So just do it. Just do it. Just tell the story. Just write the poem. Write the story. Write the movie. Write the play. Just do it. Let it be bad. And do it. Thank you for joining me. I love y'all. I do, See you tomorrow.